We've been working for the Klae Corporation. We call Daniel the Klae Resource. It's time to meet the Klaes in person.
Morning, Mr. Klae.
Captain Scopes, good to see you.
It's nice to see you, sir.
Has my sister arrived yet?
Miss Klae's helicopter is scheduled to arrive around noon.
Good, that gives me a chance to get Walter Carlson in gear. I'll want to review your security plans.
Everything's under control, sir.
That's Morgan Klae. He's the first one to arrive.
Walter, good to see you. Gosh, you're looking great, fella.
Well, thank you. You're looking very well yourself. On behalf of your corporation, it's a pleasure to have you with us, Mr. Klae.
Oh, cut the protocol. Call me Morgan.
Why do I get used car salesman vibes from him? Walter introduces Daniel and Kate and says, we're going to need all your security measures and whatever else you can scrape together. This is big.
You see, we've received a kidnap threat against my sister Carolyn. As you know, she, my brother Julian, and I each own a third of the Klae Corporation. No public stockholders, just family. Worth almost $1 billion.
Naturally, being that wealthy, they get threats all the time. But this one was different.
This particular one mentioned my sister's new project, the Planetary Planning Commission.
Then whoever it is knows that she's coming here.
She's invited delegates from all over the map. It could be radicals, terrorists, hate the rich crackpots.
Or an old-fashioned grab at a blue-chip ransom.
He says, whatever the case, I want her protected around the clock. But you'll have to be discreet because she won't cooperate with you about it.
Nothing must interfere with her plans for the new commission. She's more than a little put out with me at the moment because I voted no to the whole thing. I am opposed to inviting outsiders here to the research facility. However, my vote doesn't mean much, since she casts a spell over my brother Julian.
Walter can honestly say she won't even know she has a bodyguard. Morgan isn't asking any questions. In fact, he doesn't even seem curious. That seems most curious.
Carolyn the Great, descending from on high.
Air to ground reports your brother Julian is with her.
It takes a lot to pry Julian out of his club. You're gonna have to handle him with kid gloves.
We're set up and ready, sir.
He's in your hands.
I'm not sure I like the sound of that either.
On behalf of the entire staff, welcome.
Happy to see you kept the place up. That's a new building, isn't it? New guest house?
It grows like a federal budget, but at least we're not operating on a deficit.
What? What? A word to budding directors, don't do that. After multiple watchings, I still have no idea what anybody said, which makes the whole scene pointless.
I'm really very happy to meet you at last. I've been following the glowing reports of our Klae Resource. It's turned out to be a great asset for the corporation, although I'm sorry to say I haven't the faintest idea what it is or how it works.
We try to keep it under wraps.
I intend to familiarize myself with it.
Oh, really?
And just how familiar would you like to get? We've seen Nancy Kovac before multiple times. In particular, she was Joker's girlfriend Queenie in Batman. By this time, she was going by Nancy Kovac Mehta because in 1969 she married world-famous orchestra conductor Zubin Mehta. In a very unusual twist for celebrity marriages, they've lasted right up to the present day. Right now, she wants to make sure Walter understands how important this conference is.
I intend this to be a meeting of minds, the finest in the world. The Planetary Planning Commission is a congress of authentic geniuses assembled under Klae auspices to determine and to publicize practical priorities in world economy, energy, and environment.
I'm all for it.
It's about time someone with clout came up with a new set of world priorities.
It's got to happen, Dr. Weston.
I wonder if anybody who was related to that scene in any way had any idea how prophetic it was. She and Julian are both surprised that Morgan is here since he was against the idea. In the lab, Daniel isn't sure how he's going to do this, Walter's promises notwithstanding.
No, I have to stay visible. After all, she'll expect to see me around.
Oh, yes, she expects you to stay very close.
Do I detect a note of jealousy?
No. She's just a very charming, attractive steamroller, that's all.
And rich, don't forget that part. Daniel isn't interested, and he's right. Sorry, but you've seen one pretty face and body, and you've seen them all. Thanks to our wonderful societal norms of beauty, the goal is for all women to look alike. And frankly, especially when it comes to celebrities, we've pretty well gotten there. Carolyn is rich, forceful, and apparently on the make. She's not Kate. She's not the right person inside the body. He loves Kate, not Kate's body or face. And the whole conquest thing means zilch to him, as it should. So he can assure her that she has nothing to worry about. He can, but he won't. He'll jerk her around instead, because he can do that too. And it's a lot more fun.
She's gorgeous, attractive. And I think she has designs on your body.
Good. Let's hope she can help us find it.
All right? She's mad for your mind.
Well, you don't have anything to worry about. I'm just another pretty face.
You know how it is, those invisible guys all look alike too. Out at the security gate, they're checking all the people in who will supply food and other essentials.
Homestead catering service? That's right.
I have to agree, something about those guys doesn't click. Maybe it was the fact that the camera followed them. But he just asks a couple of routine questions and sends them on their way. I don't trust Scopes either. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because he looks like Ernest Borgnine's lesser-known twin brother. Right now, he wants to talk to the Westons.
I don't want to get hard-nosed about it, but I can't protect Miss Klae's life unless I have complete control. Now, as chief of security, I am ordering you to hand over the Klae Resource.
Hand it over.
Yes.
Well, it's not exactly a ham sandwich.
I mean, I want it under my control so that I can use it, apply it, or whatever you do with it.
He has no idea what it is, what it does, or how, but he thinks he should be in control of it. Needless to say, that's not going to happen. Scopes tries to pull rank by calling Morgan.
As executive director of the corporation, I insist on supervisory control.
I'm sure we can work it out.
With Dan and Kate Weston under my sole jurisdiction.
Now, let's be reasonable. We all want to protect Carolyn, right?
I don't think you understand, Mr. Klae.
Morgan. And I do understand.
No, you don't. Not even close. The Klae Resource is protected by a secrecy contract that even mighty Morgan can't break through. He says everything we own has to be under Captain Scopes' supervision.
The Klae Corporation has a contract which guarantees the services of the Klae Resource. You do not own it.
Are you telling me that members of the Klae family are not entitled to full access to whatever this thing is?
Yes, that's exactly what she's telling you. I'm glad you finally understand.
We're simply telling you that that's the way the contract's written.
And if it is broken, a lot of people are going to be forced to hand in their resignations. As of now.
Hold on, please. Don't talk of resigning. Carolyn would hit the ceiling.
I'm afraid we'd have no choice.
End of Klae Resource.
Now look, there's no point in wrecking one of our most valuable assets.
They reach a compromise, which is to say Morgan backs down and tells Captain Scopes to do without.
We're all in this thing together. Let's remember that.
Some of us aren't convinced that's true, but it's hard to tell what his game is at this point. Walter is taking his gaggle of Clays on a tour of the facilities, making sure everything is in place so the delegates can do research or whatever they need to do. Then there's the theater where lectures, conferences, and such will be held. This one is rather special.
Well, actually, the room isn't used too often as a theater.
Then what is it for?
Julian, nothing in the Klae Corporation is ever quite what it seems.
Then what is it?
Well, don't you remember we approved the designs?
You see, the theater covers the atomic research lab.
And the floor is built on hydraulic pistons, and those pistons control the rods down in the reactor room.
Why? Walter has the guard demonstrate one of them.
The radiation chamber is buried under the foundation.
But the theater can be used for speeches and seminars, can't it?
Certainly. I see no problem.
The theater can be used as a theater, yes. And I must repeat, why? Why do you need pieces of the floor to go up to the ceiling? If anybody can see a genuine use for such a thing, please tell me what it is. The caterers are out in the hall. They want Miss Klae to inspect the table service.
Certainly. Julian?
Julian is the dissolute brother. He follows Carolyn around like a faithful puppy, and his life consists of a never-ending and repeated search for the bottom of that martini glass. His high school class voted him least likely to have a personality. They were right.
Oh, Carolyn's wandering away. Excuse me, Walter, I'll just be a moment. I'm going to keep an eye on the silver.
I'll go with you.
While Daniel finds a discreet place to release the Klae Resource, our kidnappers are having a bit of trouble. That slows them down long enough for Daniel to catch up and follow them. It's not helping Carolyn much right now. But it's even worse, she seems to be helping them. What's going on here? Yes, Daniel is hanging on for dear life. He can't get the door open, and the truck is already going too fast to jump off. There's something strange about what we just saw there, but Daniel will need to get back to Klae and unwind a little before he'll realize what it is.
Dan, where did you disappear to?
That's not funny.
They slip away to a quiet place, and he explains where he went and what he observed.
You know, it didn't make sense out there. How many caterers were there? How many did you see?
4. Scopes asked everybody that question. No, wait. One of the cooks said there were 5, so one of them must have stayed in the kitchen.
All right, there were 4 or 5. Whatever, caterers. Plus Carolyn and Klae. That's 5 or 6. But there were only 3 people in the truck.
5 caterers and Carolyn should be twice as many. What became of the other 3? And there's something else.
2 men and a woman dressed like Carolyn Klae ran out of the truck. They ran across to the helicopter. Now, what doesn't make sense about that?
Well, the helicopter couldn't carry anymore.
No, they were all 3 running. Don't you see? Carolyn Klae wouldn't have been running. They might have dragged her or carried her, but she would not have been running of her own accord. No, I don't think that was Carolyn in that truck.
There was a woman among the caterers, and she's unaccounted for. Guess who it was? That means Carolyn is still here at Klae somewhere. Daniel needs to start searching for her, but there may be some obstacles.
The police have found the catering truck, and they've lifted a full set of prints. They belong to Dr. Daniel Weston.
Weston? That's impossible.
I hear you. And you heard me double-check. There's no mistake. Dr. Weston was also unaccounted for a good part of the day.
But Dr. Weston is one of the country's most respected physicists.
Well, I'm not jumping to any conclusions, Mr. Klae. But I think I should have a talk with Dr. Weston.
Daniel is already out Klae resourcing the place, so Kate has to cover for him.
Mrs. Weston, where was your husband while Mr. Carlson and Mr. Klae were locked in the theater?
Where he said he was?
Unconscious? In the light booth? And you didn't know he was there? Does that explain why his fingerprints were found by the police on the catering truck, which was used to kidnap Carolyn Klae?
His fingerprints?
Yes, his fingerprint.
What do they know?
That's the best you can come up with? He was out walking and took a look at the truck. They went down with Walter and examined it. Daniel probably touched it then. There's lots of things she could have said, but she went with the lamest one she could find.
Apparently a lot more than you're telling us. You better come along with us.
To his surprise, he finds Morgan in his office and he wants to talk privately. Dr. Weston will have to wait a moment.
Where is Dan Weston?
I don't know yet.
How could he have been on that truck?
No way. Unless, of course, he was snooping around outside.
I don't like it.
Well, neither do I. I have warned you about the Klae Resource people.
Gee, he and Morgan are behind the whole thing. What a surprise. Kate said it had to be an inside job, and that idea was promptly forgotten, probably under the influence of the head of security.
It was all going like clockwork. The decoy worked like a charm. The FBI and the police are looking everywhere but here. If Weston was snooping earlier, he may have caught on.
Well, he's not in his lab.
Find him!
He only has one lead, so let's bring her in now. He should be able to intimidate her. She's just a woman.
Mrs. Weston? Mrs. Weston, would you like to sit down?
It's Dr. Weston. I prefer to stand.
Maybe intimidating her won't be so easy.
Dr. Weston, I hate to act like an inquisitor, but unless you can give me some explanation for your husband's disappearance...
I'm sorry, Captain. I'm tired, and I've been through a lot. Or else I would try to make up some story which might satisfy you. What would you prefer? My husband's a werewolf? My husband's a vampire?
Or maybe my husband is... I know, he's the Invisible Man. Is that crazy enough for you?
I'm not convinced.
Convinced of what?
That your husband wasn't involved in the kidnapping.
Well, that's ridiculous. You know perfectly well my husband is a scientist working for the Klae Corporation. Now, why would he want any harm to come to Carolyn Klae?
I'd like to hear him answer that. And I'd also like to know where he was and where he is now.
It's almost sad when you see someone come to an intellectual battle and you know they're unarmed. She says, I can't help you. And she knows that while he's a big frog in this pond, at the end of the day, he's just another rent-a-cop. He has no authority to detain her or anything else. And she's done here. If he wants her to stay, he'll have to try and physically detain her. I think he has a fair idea how that would play out, which is why he's not doing it. But he's posting a guard outside her lab, and he's bringing in help to look for Daniel.
You know these dogs.
I've worked with them. Don't worry, they'll find your man.
None of them can figure out what the dogs are after because there's nothing there. But the dogs are relentless, and they've treed their prey, so to speak.
I thought you said you worked with the dogs
I have, Captain. I don't understand it.
I understand it. They gotta go back to school and learn how not to attack flagpoles.
Once they're gone, he can make his way back to the lab.
Dan? Do you have a match? Thanks.
Captain Scopes was being more than a little smug when he told Kate about how he's going to find Daniel and turn him over to the police and the FBI and the HTML and all that. And Kate quietly took it. People who really are the smart ones don't have to go around bragging about it and trying to put other people down all the time. They don't need to talk. They do.
I've looked in the labs, checked the ground, storage room, laundry room, the loading dock, and the kitchen was full of people.
No, she didn't come back to the theater.
Which leaves the library.
Behind a bookcase?
The research department in the library is like a rabbit warren. Oh, come on, you'll have to distract our guard friend again.
Since she just asked him for a match, may as well follow up on that.
Got a cigarette? Forget it.
You can have your matches back too, since she doesn't smoke anyway.
All right, look at it this way. What if Carolyn never comes back? What if she's dead?
I don't want to think about it.
You and I inherit her shares in the corporation, equally. We each get half.
But he knows Julian isn't interested in running the company. He wants to take it easy and drink. Morgan just happens to have a contract in his pocket to buy Julian out and set him up with all the luxuries he could ever want for the rest of his life. How convenient that he had the foresight to bring such a thing with him.
What makes you so sure that she's dead?
Threats against her, no ransom demands. People hate what she stands for, Julian. Her insane causes, world planning, wasting millions of dollars on idealistic hogwash.
What it boils down to is Carolyn is a pacifist. She refuses to allow the Klae Corporation to get involved in war materials and research. Morgan sees only dollar signs. Julian sees only that his glass needs refilling.
Doesn't she know that there's a starving world out there just waiting to tear people like us to pieces? We have an atomic lab buried in this building which she wastes on medical research for them. Cure their diseases so they can rise up to kill us.
My mistake. Morgan's crazy. But who could have predicted that 50 years later we'd be so close to what he described?
What if Carolyn is alive?
Sign it.
I'll need some time to read it.
By all means, read it. I'll be back in half an hour.
If he's reacting like that just because you want to read it, you don't need to read it. You need to burn it. Julian is a marshmallow, but he's a non-violent marshmallow, which is why he always does what Carolyn tells him and rejects Morgan's ideas. Let's follow Morgan and see what he does next.
Did he sign it?
Not yet. He doesn't believe she's dead.
He'll believe it when he sees it.
How long will it take?
She'll be dead by morning.
Can't it go any faster?
We can't move the rods any more than we have. See, the needles record any increase in radiation.
That should tell Daniel where she is and what they're trying to do to her.
Let's be sure we're all lined up. I've prepared a statement. Carolyn Klae was discovered by security personnel in the atomic research chamber where she had apparently tried to hide from her abductors. Death was due to prolonged exposure to radiation.
How touching. You can almost smell the grief dripping off him.
All that's left are the two caterers.
They're on guard. We'll slip them out after dark.
Fine.
I'm surprised they aren't eliminating them, too. That's how these things usually go.
Why don't you check downstairs?
Look at him.
And everywhere the captain went, the Dan was sure to go.
How much does she have? Well, it's a very slow process, like sunburn. If she got out now, she'd just be weak for a couple of days.
He had to enjoy making a monkey out of the captain. Once they're all unconscious, he slips into one of the radiation suits and takes the other one inside for Carolyn to put on. She wants to know why she can't see his face. He says, "It's a trick of the light, I'll explain later." Presumably he won't have to because enough other stuff will happen that she'll forget about it. It always works for Superman when Lois Lane starts asking questions.
Where are you?
Up in the lighting booth. We need help.
I'm stuck with this guard.
Call Walter. Tell him to come and pick you up. Tell him to watch out for Scopes and Ryan. They're in on it with Morgan Klae.
Morgan? Morgan?
It's a power grab to steal control of the corporation, but there's a way to stop it. Now listen carefully and do exactly as I say.
If this was a cartoon, we'd see them all go into a huddle and go... Since it's not a cartoon, we'll just cut away.
Carolyn can't help you now, Julian. Sign it.
I promised her when we inherited the corporation I would never let you take over.
Oh, you did? Well, she's not coming back. You're all alone, Julian.
Look, Morgan, I don't want to fight with you. You've always been too strong for me.
Carolyn is dead.
Ask him how he knows, Julian. He sounds awfully certain.
Sign it. What do you think you're doing? I didn't do that.
Julian is loving this. Suddenly, Morgan seems to have 12 thumbs.
Sit down and sign it. Right here and now.
That won't be necessary.
Carolyn!
And by the way, that contract is predicated on the assumption that she's dead. Even if he had signed it, it would be meaningless since she hasn't met that requirement. She's also not buying his phony concern. She says, "I know you tried to kill me so you could take over the company."
You know I wouldn't hurt anyone.
I know you want to control the corporation more than anything. You want war contracts, weapon research, power. Oh, yes. You want to hurt everyone. You want me dead.
Pick it up and read it to Carolyn.
Morgan is still protesting his innocence for all the good it's doing him.
Oh, you dropped something, Morgan. Oh, let me see. Carolyn Klae was discovered by the security personnel in the atomic research chamber where she had apparently tried to hide from her abductors.
That's enough! Hold it, Morgan. Don't move.
Let me finish, please. Death was due to prolonged exposure to radiation. Morgan Klae.
Time to unwind and celebrate a little. They have all had a very long day.
Perfect.
About that optical illusion, Dr. Weston.
Well, it's simply a matter of light.
Well, let's just file it under Klae Resource. It's classified.
So the old tell you later trick didn't work. That either means he's no Superman or Carolyn is a lot smarter than Lois Lane. In a twist that I didn't see coming, Morgan didn't go to prison. He's been put in a hospital for the criminally insane. So he really was crazy. I'm not sure what the guidelines were for such things in 1976, but similar places still exist. In the case of someone like Morgan, I don't know if the goal is just containment or if they'll try to rehabilitate him, but at least he won't be trying to kill any more relatives. Scopes went to regular prison on multiple charges. The whole courtroom laughed out loud when he testified that a fire extinguisher came to life and hit him. But despite the goofy way he was taken down, the judge still refused to call it the Scopes monkey trial. And just how familiar did you want to... Okay. He had to enjoy making a monkey out of the... Brother, he follows Carolyn... I'm glad you finally understand. Understand.